edits and
so
stuff
much done.
and consolidate and make them
Yeah,
Make it smaller.
good
But
point.
our
Where are we
purview
making
is the red.
in the slideshow.
And
in
the
this you emailed? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I
Oh,
have it
okay.
here.
Mhm.
And we can go slide by slide. I think what we probably should do is read through them really quickly so we know exactly where we are before we start consolidating, if that's okay with everyone.
I'm amenable to.
Great.
We and to verify this, we could start here and go.
Yep, they're the red ones.
We're the
We're
red,
the red
we're the
ones.
red ones.
Thank you.
It's okay. It's very good.
You organized
makes
this in the
sense.
exact right way, because that was
Yeah.
my biggest concern, is like, I know that there's standard
I know, there
in
was
focus area 1, focus area 2, focus
Between,
area 3.
exactly, and it wasn't, and those
Oh,
were
that's
just arbitrary.
We miss you.
Oh, yeah. Those areas were kind of arbitrary.
Yeah.
Now they're not actually needed for the final recommendations. They worked, they got us to this point, but now we can let those go.
Well, I think when I started with the focus area 1, not everyone understood what focus area 1 was and how it differentiated from focus area. And so,
Cause yeah, I didn't bring my laptop over. I'll go get it if you want me to, but it's like, you know, when we're recommending standard 3 to
Like
be
program
revised.
standard 3.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
wanna see
what is
what
it?
the current language is, so we know.
And
what
we're talking
recommending.
induction program standard 3.
Okay, if we use Ben's computer for our slide.
Okay.
yeah, I can be the slide. Oh,
And I can be the researcher.
hold
You
on.
can be the researcher, I'll be the audience.
You have to, can you just join and share?
But I want to make sure we bring Rebecca into it. So I could join the Zoom and
Yeah.
Oh,
screen
no,
share?
I'm fine.
No.
Oh, right. So I can see it?
So you can see the slides.
I'll pull it up on mine. I'll follow along with you.
Hi, Rebecca, nice to see you.
Hi, I'm so sad I'm not there. Hi, Ben. I don't know if we've ever been in a group together,
You
have we?
haven't. I'm so excited to be here
You've
with
been avoiding me all this time.
It worked up until today.
Yeah.
right?
Tried so hard.
So we revise it to include TPA and IDP in the development of ILP and induction goals. Well,
But
Can
it's
can we
in
just
favor.
take a second to read through all of them to see if any of them repeat?
yes,
Yeah, is that
And-
okay?
how many do we have to look at?
Like 10.
everything
Quick.
from program standard 3 down.
Okay, I'm gonna do it on the slides because they're all isolated nicely.
Oh, hey, Ben, I had a quick question for you. I'm looking at the standard. Are we looking at an induction program standard 3 or multiple single program standard 3 clinical practice?
So it's induction focused.
Okay. So
Because
we're in
it's about the how programs talk to induction and how the IDP becomes the ILP in induction, if that makes sense.
okay. Thanks.
Do you want me to put it as a comment, standard 3? In the
No,
document?
because that's sort of what it's headed, right?
It's a really long comment. so-
Thanks, Kathleen.
Yeah, the first 3 of these are about induction, but the rest kind of aren't.
Some won't be.
I don't.
Or it must be.
I
the
worry
other-
that we're
yeah.
talking about two program
different
standards
things.
3, right?
Mhm.
So there is an induction program standard 3, but if you look at the common standards, there's also program standard 3, and I think
Right.
we got conflated in here.
Right.
Mhm.
Can you, I messed up. Can you, if you go into the slideshow and just refresh? And now try making a change.
Yep.
Okay.
Hey, real quick.
Yeah.
I think I don't know if it matters, but it might be important for later. I think there's actually two program standard threes that we're talking about. There's common standard three, which is coursework and fieldwork, and then there's induction program
Okay,
standard three.
okay.
So it's
Thank
just
you.
something
Yeah.
just. I wanted
So
to
it's
call
that,
out.
yeah, induction standard, so it's not program standard 3D, it's common standard.
I
3D.
think so, because this doesn't
Yeah.
make
Because we
sense.
did talk
with-
about induction before, but this seems too broad.
Yeah, and then when I was like, okay, what are we talking about? Oh yeah,
Yeah,
coursework,
yeah,
fieldwork,
yeah.
clinical practice, common standards, right?
Yeah, and Ben, that's why I was asking, is it common standard 3 or is it program? Because program standard 3 is the clinical practice standard.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
Could
And I
be,
think it depends on the recommendation. I think they all got bundled together.
mhm,
Yeah.
because 44 is induction standard.
Right, and we're
Slide-
talking about ILPs.
Slide 40.
But
So you
something-
just,
Five.
yeah, maybe add the word language in there,
Yeah,
common standard versus,
and yeah,
because it shouldn't be called program standard.
yeah.
Okay. Good catch, team.
Sorry.
Oh, it's fine.
Oh, okay, that's good. So, okay, clarifying, 40, slide 44 then, that one is study fieldwork clinical practice. Mm-hmm,
Yeah.
because that's a fieldwork slide. So I put the standard next to it.
Thank you, anonymous iguana.
What is thinking? You believe Steve?
People still do.
yeah. Hey, Ben,
What's up, Tim?
and one more quick comment on common standard 3. So changes to common standard 3 could have impact on programs which do not use the TPA because the common standards are across the entire unit. So any changes to these standards would affect programs like CASC,
Yep.
CTE, everything, even if they don't use the TPA.
Put out a PPA.
True, you were 100%. So maybe we just have to change the language away from TPA, right? To their version of performance assessment.
Yeah, I'm just pointing out because that's why I was looking, because I was thinking that if there are changes that are going to be made to the TPA, then that could have an impact on the clinical practice for those programs that use the TPA, specifically PK3, multiple single, and ed specialist.
And I'm gonna ask a really dumb question.
No dumb questions.
Oh, there definitely are.
I put
Be-
them up to.
Between FAST and does PK3, which we're not pursuing accreditation for, does it not have a performance assessment component?
It does. Well, it should have a performance assessment TPE, which was TPE5, which is being discussed in one of the other breakout rooms. But that's why I came in here because I thought we were going to be focusing on the program standard for multiple single ed specialist and PK3 for program standard 3, which is clinical practice, which may impact some of the ways interns, they're applied to interns and even student teachers. So that's why I was just saying, if you're looking at common standard 3, just be aware that these standards, common standard 3, is for all the programs throughout the entire educational unit, including admin, designated subject, nursing.
Library credentials,
yeah.
you know, everything that doesn't have anything like it. You're right. That's a good. So if this is meant to be in the induction program standard, then it makes more sense.
But only that first bullet point is, because the other
Right.
ones, when you look at it, are talking about like mentorship for a brand new teacher.
Yeah.
And so those are actually meant to be program standards, and maybe they
Mhm.
don't belong in 3, maybe they belong in 5.
Right.
Tell me more about that, Ben. Why wouldn't they belong with induction?
So the second one, if you go on slides,
Mhm.
where are we at?
I'm on 45.
Yeah,
Is that what you're talking?
45, right? So this is about how programs are I believe the intent of this is about how programs are providing evidence to mentor teachers on preparing their candidates to the TPA, right? So
Okay,
in
right.
induction, they would have already done the TPA, so that it's
Right.
not meant to be the induction standard.
Mhm.
I would agree. Yeah.
I'm assuming the intention is for programs that are doing student teachers, intern teachers, like anyone going through a program, I think it's intended for them to train mentors on the TPA. And so the problem is program standard 3, like Tim just called out, is for admin programs as well. Who don't
But that's
have a
oh,
TPA
common.
that-
I just want to clarify, it's common standard 3. So
Yes,
common standard 3 covers all the programs within the educational unit. So like for like a big CSU, that would include their nursing program, their PPS programs, which do not use the TPA. And I think also if you're looking at the induction standard, induction is post TPA. So I was thinking, and that's why I came to it. Seems like if there are going to be changes made to the TPA, then there might be need to be changes made in clinical practice and how candidates are supported in clinical practice.
But even though it's post TPA, aren't we trying to address the connection between TPA and induction?
Could be, yeah.
So,
I don't know.
Yeah.
so even though it's induction is post, I think that's what we're trying to fix is that they're entirely separate, and we're trying to make TPA inform induction through the ILP.
And definitely slide 44 tries to do that. I think if we're looking at like slide 45, which could have impacts on other professional careers, is that there's language already that says site-based supervisors must be certified and experienced in teaching the specified content or performing the services authorized by the credential. The process and criteria result in the selection of a site-based supervisor who provides effective and knowledgeable support for candidates. Site-based supervisors are trained in supervision, oriented to the supervisory role, evaluated and recognized in a systemic manner.
Yep.
So I'm wondering if slide 45 already exists. That programs provide evidence for how they're supporting mentor teachers or training. It's already required. So who are they reporting this evidence to? Does that make sense?
Yes.
It's just going to be screamed into the wind.
So the training for mentors, there's a requirement, and this is just off the top of my head, for 10 hours of mentor training that's dealing with cognitive coaching, adult learning theory, and content expertise.
Mm-hmm.
Along with like generally programs will also have a presentation about like how their program operates, and we'll sprinkle things in.
Number of years of experience,
Yeah.
XYZ. Right?
But I don't know. I think reading this, it seems to me that they want a requirement for mentors to be introduced to the TPA and how it operates. That's how I'm
Right.
reading it,
Right.
which is not currently a requirement.
Right, and I think that if I remember the discussion, that was the intent of this.
Yeah.
That mentors know more about TPA, what it's required, the timeline, the standards that.
And then the conflict would be that not all mentors participate in TPA. And so this will have a ripple effect on.
Like I never took a TPA.
And are we
Yeah.
using the term mentor to mean cooperating teacher, master teacher,
Yes.
whatever places call them? Because mentors is generic.
Indirect credentials.
Yeah.
I also think, even though we theme this out, I'm pretty sure mentor training and other people who touch the candidate in some way, shape, or form training is mentioned multiple times.
Yeah, because there's one in here about the admin person. If it's an intern, the
Right.
admin person has to be trained.
Right.
But only if it's an intern, and I don't remember where that is, but I know it's in here somewhere.
Hey, Tim,
It's already in the purple one.
Is there any other standard it could be that I'm not thinking of?
And it's in the green one.
With regards to what specifically?
Like mentor training requirements.
Yeah, that would pretty much all be in program standard 3 for all the programs, all the teacher preparation programs. Yeah, let me check to see if PK3 is also, because I know PK3, the standards are a little shifted because they have additional ones, but for multiple single ed specialists, the clinical practice standard is program standard 3. But let me check PK3 real quick.
I do have 4 slides within this 52 that address mentor training.
Okay, so in PK3 program standards, program standard, yeah, so even in PK3, program standard 3 is clinical practice.
And so we could just say in each individual program standard 3, language be updated to say, and like put something about like mentorship, right? And that should influence only what we're looking to influence, correct?
That could work, and that would be in the program standards for the programs that are dependent on the TPA. Because currently there is no language, I don't think, in the clinical practice program standard 3 around mentor or university supervisor training with regards to the TPA that I can see.
Since we have the slides open, could you like bookmark this and go to slide 36?
Oh, and I had a quick question. Where does that link to the slides? I must have came in a little.
I think it's an in-house. It's basically, if you look at handout 2
Okay.
by
Yeah.
theme, it's basically a slide for each of those themes, but I don't think she's given public access to it yet.
Gotcha. Okay.
So if you look at slide 36, recommends program standard 5 be revised to include orientation to engage credential candidates, including interns and their administrators, mentor teachers, credential candidates, supervising staff, and faculty with meaningful professional learning opportunities specific to TPA tasks,
Yeah.
rubric scoring, and how they can be supported. Isn't this something that really belongs in 5?
Well, this is what I was saying, is I think there's multiple iterations of it outside our group.
I would almost say dump our slide and keep the one that's more meaningful that's in the appropriate place.
Does our slide have a clause that's not in the other one?
No?
Yeah. And
That's
just,
only
I
one.
did, oh, Ben, I did see there is a breakout room working on program standard 5.
Yeah, and I think
Exactly.
right now they're doing, I mean, it encapsulates what we're trying to do with the language of what
Maybe a
they're
little better.
doing.
So that recommendation kind of speaks to your last comment at the table about sort of interdependency. Like you said, if one goes forward and needs another one, this is the opposite. If we
Yeah.
dump one, we have to ensure the other one is
Yeah.
still.
I can go over to the room and just make sure.
Slide 36.
Do we know what room this might be? Program practices?
It's the one right before us.
Okay.
Juliet would know.
And we can't annotate on here like.
If I make a comment on it,
Standard 5 one.
Yeah.
room.
you know where you said it's eyes in?
36. They haven't even started slide 36.
The first one?
Yeah, close to us.
Thank you.
It's the big show.
You missing campus yet?
Was it weird packing up? I'll have to pack
I
in the
haven't packed up.
classroom. Oh,
I'm on leave.
Maria. There you go. Don't pack up.
Yeah.
Oh, somebody made a box.
That's me.
Thank you.
Uh,
I'm gonna text you. I have a book for you. I'm gonna drop in the mail.
oh, that's right. I was so excited to come. My sister was supposed to watch my son and she called yesterday and said they were sick. And I was like, but will you watch him anyway? And she was gonna, I was like, I don't care if he gets sick.
Hey, Rebecca, I'm always yeah.
We are always in the service of little people. Other
Yes.
people's little people are little
Yep.
people.
Yeah.
You pay
I have
rent.
my mom, I think are arriving at my house now, so that
Mhm.
my husband and daughter are flying to Philadelphia tonight.
Oh my God.
Yeah, she's performing.
Oh, that's
She goes to a
wonderful.
they go to a visual performing arts school. And so the concert choir and show choirs. They're taking a bus at 11 o'clock tonight from Fresno to San Francisco. Boarding a plane first thing tomorrow morning, flying to Philadelphia.
When you said Philadelphia, then you said boarding a bus. I was like, what?
No.
Like,
I know, me too.
Yeah,
boarding a
bus
bus to
ride
Philadelphia.
in the
Yeah.
middle of the night,
Yeah.
San Francisco.
Oh my
Yeah,
goodness.
I'm not, I was like, thank you, RDI TPA.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, anyway.
Oh, how exciting.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah.
That's like one of those core memories. She's never gonna forget.
Yeah,
it. Yeah.
Will your husband FaceTime you for the performance? Can you see it?
that's a good idea. I don't know.
That's nice. You've probably heard the songs once or twice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Mhm.
really good. Pretty amazing.
That's great.
It's a really cool school.
Nice.
But I feel your pain, Rebecca, about trying to make sure you get that covered.
Oh, yeah.
Logistics.
Yeah.
Right.
All been there.
Excellent. Good to go.
Okay, and I am clearly in a minimalist mood.
We can actually do both. We can jump both of these.
46 and 47.
Yeah, because they're encapsulating admin, they're encapsulating everything in their training standard for program standard 5.
and Kate, this is a dumb question. Where are you getting these numbers? 46,
Oh, here, do
47?
you want to look on with me?
Oh, it's the
It's
slides,
the slide numbers.
the slide numbers.
The numbers.
Oh, on your phone. It's because you're on your
Oh,
phone.
okay.
Phones are so weird. Look on with me, it's okay.
So I'm just making sure, do you think this encapsulates the third bullet point under program standard 3? It says orientation engage, credential candidates, their administrators, mentor teachers, supervising staff,
What are you reading?
faculty. I'm reading their number 36. So do you think that that encapsulates LEA stakeholders? I would think so, right? Cool. We can dump both of ours then.
Yeah, and I left them a note too. Please keep replace the slide 4630.
And there's nothing from ours that we need them to add to theirs. There's
It's better.
incorporates. Good, good, good.
Quite honestly, Beverly, I think we wrote slide 46 and 47, and then the next meeting we wrote slide 36. Does that
I
sound?
think so too. Yes.
Yeah, I think it was the better revision. So good. It's nice to be able to revise. It's good for our brains. Can we go back to slide 45?
Yep.
Program standard 3, induction program standard 3. To include consideration of TPA and IEP information in the development of the ILP. Again, we talked about how this is just formalizing it's a suggestion of best practice. We're talking about Juliet, like it is a suggestion of best practice. It's not necessarily enforceable.
Well, because
Right.
it's the language is to include consideration, and that's nothing
It's
enforceable.
not required.
No.
Yeah.
And if we truly think, which I do, that it's really important that that connection be there, then it needs to be more than include consideration.
Mhm.
It needs to be, something.
Incorporate feedback because it does already exist as a implied or encouraged best practice, but
Right.
that's where we're trying to transition to a mandatory.
Right. So if we really want, and forgive me if this is not what you all really want, but the royal we, if we really want the results of TPA to go with the candidate, and when they write their first ILP, it's based at least in part on what the TPA told them. Then how do we make that happen? What's the connection? Is it with the candidate? Is it from the program to the induction, from the teacher ed program to the induction of the district? Does the candidate have the responsibility of carrying those results forward? Like, how do we make that happen? And who can the CTC hold responsible for making it happen? Like, where are the teeth? Is it, I would think that they make the induction program responsible, that say, when you write an ILP, you're required to look at the TPA results and incorporate them,
I would agree that's where it'd fall,
or
but
explain why you didn't.
well, and that's where I worry is like, so I also recognize our induction program as an example, and this is like a microcosm, is like 700 candidates deep at any given time, right?
Right.
Across, not just in Sac County, they support other counties that may not have induction programs as well. And so if a candidate took 2 years off from teaching
Right.
and then stepped into an induction as an example, once they had their prelim and now started and are like, oh, no, I don't have my, I just don't know what the program
Yeah.
would do in that case with information sharing, protecting student privacy.
Right.
And that's what the barriers are right now.
But let's say in the group of players, the only ones really you can hold responsible for this is the induction program,
Right.
because they write they're responsible.
You're
the
correct,
ILP.
yeah. And they leave their program with a finished IDP if the program's doing their
Right.
job properly.
And so if it's the induction program that has to make sure that TPA results are included, how can you write it in a way that says you have to, that allows for, yeah, for lack of a better term, extenuating circumstances, like the 2-year gap person, or like under normal circumstances,
Yeah.
the induction program must blah, 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 blah.
Yeah. And I think it's really easy from a county level because we're already partners with our districts. If our county is doing induction, our interim program can feed It's not even information sharing because we work all together
Yeah.
with the candidates,
See, I
right?
think this is one of our most critical recommendations that address formative in nature. That we take the
Yeah.
TPA results and we make them not an endpoint, but a
Launch point.
checkpoint
Yeah.
into induction. So as being somebody who is actively day-to-day in induction, I think you're the best person among this limited group to say, what can an induction program reasonably be held to? You know, how can we write this in a way that will make you do the right thing?
When I think induction programs, I'm gonna be honest, I think they want this.
Yeah,
And the problem becomes, what do you do when a candidate's like, I don't have that? Or what do you do when a candidate is the one like, I don't, right?
and so is that must be a better term than saying under normal circumstances, the induction program must do this.
Yeah.
And then you work with the program and they say, you know, if they say 8% of our candidates don't give us their TPA
Yes.
results is different than saying 80% of our
Yes,
candidates.
I agree. And if
And-
that's the barrier, like if we're looking more often than not,
Right.
or like a majority or as much as possible, I think most induction programs, maybe, again, I have a very narrow view. I know our induction program does that, you know what I mean?
So if you say to the extent possible, that doesn't quite get there either because it
I
kind
know,
of-
it leaves the wiggle room.
Yeah, so even as much as possible, or I keep coming back to normal circumstances, but I don't know what that means either.
Yeah,
But, you know, maybe it's the expectation that every ILP will be based on this, blah, blah, blah. And programs that are not able to do this,
make every effort.
give a rationale or
Yeah.
explain why, you know, something. But what if you just say it's the expectation? It is expected that induction programs will develop the ILP based on GPA results.
Yeah, no, I think that's right.
think-
That would work.
It is tricky though, because I know when I shared with with our induction, my best friend who does induction, I don't remember her title. She had concerns about requiring an employee to share their test results, like what Ben was talking about with privacy and what makes them share, right? Like I don't know that there's anything that says you must share your results. And if there is, or if there isn't, do we need to make that? Can we make? I don't know if we can. I know in like our second meeting, our first or second meeting, we talked about creating a repository for results, like a centralized database for IDPs.
That's kind of more scary than the,
Mm.
but I get what you're saying, and it's sort of like it's different than when a district hires somebody and the person, it's not like a yes or no, I have a credential or I don't. You know, it's what were your weaknesses on TPA, what, you know, asking them to share that. And it's almost like requiring you share your GPA or you share, you know, which I don't know. Do we consider TPA results, test results, professional criteria results to be personal and private, or are they part of your professional qualification and it's your employer's sort of prerogative to inquire about it?
Well, one thing is like, if we require the IDP to be informed by the TPA, and that's done with the preparation program, then a new employee comes to us, doesn't need to share their TPA scores, but they have to share their IDP.
Yes.
So and that's where we get to again, where it's like already the should do's, but isn't a must do.
So it's
But how do we make it a must do?
it's almost my same language. It's the expectation that the ILP be based on the IDP, not the TPA results, but, right?
Well, and part of me is like, I just don't understand why we have different documents. Like, why do
I
we,
know.
it doesn't make sense to
What
me.
are the letters again?
IDP, ILP,
What's-
individual development plan, individual learning plan.
Brother.
That's what I'm saying.
Well, if we're talking about this being a continuum, we shouldn't have a stop-start place.
Right.
Okay, I'm done with my IDP and now I'm gonna work on my ILP.
There's a recommendation for that.
Well, maybe
It's-
it's an ILDP.
Right.
Or an IDLP.
And it's tricky because they are created based on different standards.
Yeah,
Yep.
So IDP is on the, what is it?
CSTP.
CSTPs?
Yeah.
No. Yes.
The other
ILP
way
is
around.
CSTPs, yeah.
Yeah,
And then ILP is, I'm forgetting, but you know what I mean.
yeah.
And that goes to why I felt so strongly about creating the continuum where we connect those two.
So, but I think it addresses, if we kind of back up to one step at a time, I think it addresses the privacy issue if we say that the
I
ILP
agree.
is based on, has to be informed by the IDP. And then the next problem for some other group is to how to make that one continual document, not IDP
Yeah.
turning into, it's like, or maybe we address it by not saying the ILP be based on, but that the IDP, this is wrong, but it's like, it's transformational into the ILP, like it's the document that is transformed into.
Like an AI updates, takes this and puts
Right.
into this
So,
form for you.
so it's not.
Yeah.
like-
Ben, can I do a quick just about the mechanism for sharing TPA scores, which may be helpful? So currently, almost all candidates share their results through Results Analyzer with their institution, and when they actually submit the, I guess their application for the TPA, they tell who they want the results shared with. And since all of our induction programs are commission-approved institutions, the candidate could also, I mean, this is just something to think about, give the induction program permission to access their TPA results through Results Analyzer, just as they do their current teacher preparation program.
It's true. The two issues I could see with that, though, is if you're a student teacher, you may not have a job lined up quite yet, so you may not
Right.
know who to share it with.
But that's what I'm saying. There would have to be a second step. So it currently doesn't exist.
But it
So
all back to that
currently-
privacy issue if they don't want to share actual test scores, but instead share their IDP.
Yeah. So a candidate, so there could be a mechanism in place where after the candidate completes their program, they could then go back to, I guess it's Pearson or ETS, and say, now I'd like to have my TPA score shared with my induction program through Results Analyzer. But that would be an additional step that doesn't exist currently.
Right, that's what I was gonna say. Do they
Incredible
have that option
cost.
now to go back and say, I want to add one more recipient? Because you don't know that you're gonna be hired by X district. And then 3 months later, you get hired and can you go back and say, give them my results?
And I can tell you the current example of where that actually occurs is for interns seeking the early completion option. So interns who have already taken the TPA that then want to maybe pursue the early completion option through another institution have to get their TPA scores to the new institution so they can verify that they passed the TPA with a passing score in the first try in order for them to be eligible. So there's currently a mechanism in place for candidates to share their TPA scores with a different institution other than the one that they were enrolled in when they took it.
Tim,
I
do you
live in
know,
a
does
big
it cost money?
I don't know that, but I know it's come up like a few times where candidates switch programs and they want to go from the student teacher to ECO and they share their scores with the new institution.
Well, it makes me think of, when kids take, when they used to take SAT, ACT, and they would have the option, you can share these results with up to
Yeah.
X number of institutions. If TPA scores had that same option, but not like you could come back and revisit it. If you haven't used all of your 5 options or whatever, that you can come back and add 1 or 2 or wherever you get hired
So
without a fee.
for the sake of finding middle ground, but also like to bring together what people are saying, if we want to include consideration of TPA and IDP information in the development of the ILP, it is reasonable to include that wording to revise IPS Standard 3. It would not incur a cost to include that wording as a suggestion in Standard 3. Technically, consideration of IDP does not incur a cost in and of itself. because they receive the IDP and can bring it with them. And IDP doesn't disclose sensitive information that could marginalize people with disabilities.
Yeah, that's all
Our most fragile credential candidates who are less likely to pass because of demographic information.
Yeah.
Is it possible that we could agree to consensus on including consideration of IDP information in the development of ILP induction goals in the standard, because that does not exist, and then let that be the thing?
That includes a lot of the rationale for it, which is good.
Yeah.
But what's the actual recommendation language?
So we recommend the induction
Expectation.
program standard 3 be revised to include the words that IDP information should be considered in the development of the ILP. and
I want
induction
it
goals.
stronger than considered. I would go the other way, that the ILP be developed. It's the expectation that the IDP will be developed based on IDP information. Because if you just say consider it, they'll say, okay, well,
Well, and to your point, like I think every institution that has credential candidates holds on to the IDP. Like I have all my IDPs, I can look them up at any time for any of my candidates. Meaning the information's there. It's really the candidate. If I'm an induction program person, I would say you need to go back to the institution, get that IDP if you do not have it, and share it with me by blank date. Like,
yeah.
So the mechanisms are there where you don't necessarily need to distribute student information,
Right.
involve lawyers, have an MOU.
And it's not test results, it's
Yeah. So my only concern is that if the student teacher completed TPA in a very, very, very different demographic, then
that
they're
happens, yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And it can be something like an educational specialist. You could be in a completely different situation, right, than you did your student teaching in. So like the expectation that you have a goal placed based on a student teaching assignment versus the actual assignment that you've been placed in, urban versus rural school, right? All sorts of considerations, especially when you get to subject areas that can be pretty diverse, in terms of like what you teach. I think just consideration offers the opportunity to also be more understanding of where the credential candidate is in their journey.
Well, maybe there's a way to incorporate both.
Okay.
That it's the expectation that the induction programs use and consider the information from IDPs in the development of ILPs. So, because then you use and consider means that they look at them and think about what they say, and it doesn't say it has to be exactly.
I also think about how TPA results come in, and they just come in with a rubric score. That's literally it. Like there's not really feedback or anything. It's just like, oh, you got a 2 in this rubric, which aligns with these 6 TPEs. So you can choose from these 6 TPEs, where do you want to focus? You know what I mean? Like, so that, I mean, to be very honest, the TPA still gives choice. The rubrics will give choice because they're aligned to every CSTP when they move into induction. Yeah.
Juliet, I hope you're not telling us to hurry up because we're not ready.
Yeah.
Really. I mean, I probably do need to start saying that.
Yeah.
I'm just checking in, really.
We're done
I'm
with
just
Okay.
great.
We did 3.
And that
But
one,
Ben,
we're working on what?
That's even
I have
better.
a question for you about the IDP, right? Because I don't have a lot of familiarity with IDP, but if it's based on standards, I'm wondering how much your setting really does show up. To Kate's question around
It's
if
based
I'm hired in a different setting, but if
yes.
it's based on just a standard,
Mhm.
and I think we could probably make the connection.
So we made this beautiful checklist in our program, which this is
Oh,
to help.
beautiful.
I'm going to do it this way,
Send that to me.
where we have what the TPA results align to each TPE, meaning each CSTP at this point in time, each rubric. And so we have X's. So like TPE or TPA rubric 1.1 aligns to TPE 1, 2, 3, 4, and 6. It does not align to TPE 5, meaning if I'm a candidate who scored a 1 or a 2 on TPA rubric 1.1, I can now choose really any TPE from engaging students, maintaining effective environments, organizing subject matter, planning instruction, because they are the same.
TPE to CSTP.
Yeah,
right, this is
but
your
the
question.
TP and CSTP have the same
Yeah.
domain titles at this point, but they are about to change potentially soon because the CSTP revision. So my whole point is you're correct, because the rubrics are so broad, that there might need to be some work on the actual TPA rubrics because they're 14 pages worth of documents for one TPA. But because they're so broad right now, like literally it would still give, there's no one rubric that's only associated to one TPE. It doesn't exist.
So you're gonna send that to me?
Yeah, sure. I'm happy to.
Okay, I'll lay it on the one.
I just thought that you were,
I put
you're just explaining why.
reword to say,
Well, you can do it.
no.
Well,
wouldn't
you know
let
what?
me.
The reword is
Oh,
really
will let
easy.
me,
If you
yeah.
look at this,
Just reword it.
Okay.
if you move consideration to over here,
Uh-huh.
so be revised to include the expectation that the TPA IDP information be considered in the development. So you put the expectation on the induction program, but we still have the be considered.
I still feel like be considered is so soft. Like,
I agree, but
I think like
Not to point fingers.
that the IDP forms the
agree.
forms the foundation for the ILP, for the initial ILP. So it's really just ILP 1 is based on your IDP.
I like that too. I like that too.
Okay, I put words on, if you can see them, please look at them, Rebecca, on slide
I see them.
And then you said that after I started typing, so slow down.
Okay.
Recommends the induction program standard be revised to include the following. These are the exact words we want in the standard. IDP information should be included in the development of the initial ILP and induction goals.
Um,
And because you work on both sides with teacher prep and induction, right? At the county.
Kind of. I run the induction or
Kind of.
induction program, but I've been an induction coordinator for a school district where I did all the matches and I worked closely. So
Okay.
I've had my
You have both.
yeah.
It's a real.
How could we put this to make it actionable?
IDP information.
Good question.
Or is it-
IDP.
Well, the question is,
Like goals.
Right.
IDP.
are we
and
looking for a
practice.
requirement?
I don't
Are
know,
we
because
looking
information
for,
could be, you fill out your
and
name,
I'm
address
not-
on it,
The
you know,
IDP should be included.
I don't know the feasibility for induction programs that have like 2,000
Yeah,
candidates
maybe it's that.
on,
The
are they
IDP.
able to verify if each candidate turned in an IDP to create the ILP? Do you see what I'm saying? Like, so that's
The
where
candidates,
I'm just sitting and listening to
each candidate.
you guys to tell me what to say.
For a-
What an IDP is required for your preliminary credential, yeah?
Correct.
Mhm.
Programs
they
are
have to do
required
it.
to have the
Mhm.
candidates do an IDP.
Mhm.
And in induction, candidates are required
Required.
to do an ILP based on their program standards.
Mhm.
So the program standards exist in both. And right now, believe it or not, there's actually a program standard that says they have to connect, or they don't have to. That it would be nice if they connect, I think, is maybe we would like it if they connect. And so I think what Beverly's trying to point out is maybe the language needs to be stronger than we would like it, because right now it doesn't always connect.
Well, what Kate has written now is that we revise the standard to include the following. A candidate's IDP should be included in the development of the initial ILP and induction goals.
Which does not exist in the current language and includes formative nature. And it also enables induction programs, the elbow room, to support their folks as they include the development.
See, ideally, what you're getting at is ideally whatever goals and plan you make in the IDP, the ILP continues and builds upon that.
Right.
Hmm.
Like in my mind, I don't even understand, other than the
When you
fact
say
that
it's
CSTP.
included, it could be, it's just appended as a, attachment to it.
Mm.
So,
To me, it makes sense that it would literally be, they finish at the end of program, they do an IDP. Like, why did they redo a form going into induction like that?
Yeah.
It just doesn't even make sense. You know what I mean?
so
New work group. Will work group be convened
There's actually a
to
slide.
align IDP and ILP?
Because I
It's
wanna
the
be
same
able to-
document. It's just, to your point, TPEs and CSTPs. That's it. That's the only difference.
And I think that
And if
that
you
is
look at the-
where that's where the induction mentor can come in and say like, okay, your IDP was based on this demographic or whatever. Here in our district, here's how we're going to do that.
Right. I would think it's actually more of, if I had a guess, and this is a guess, I don't have data, I would assume it's actually a communication issue. Where like programs such as mine should be saying to candidates, you will need this in induction, believe it or not, we say that. Then candidates know that and they keep it, so when they enroll into induction, they can launch with it in their hands. But my
Mhm.
assumption is there's those weird cases where people might move or leave
Mhm.
or just not want to use that goal. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And so it could be something simple like that.
Okay, slide 50.
Whoop whoop.
So slide 50 through 55 is like that Jeopardy potpourri. It's like everything. But I think some of these we can combine. Okay, because we wanted to keep data, address disproportionate success rates.
I also imagine this has overlap with other groups.
Link data. Local scoring. So let's start with the first one, 50.
read it so I can find it without the number.
The RDI TPA work group recommends CTC develop and support a system of shared accountability between prep programs, CTC, TPA model sponsors to address disproportionate TPA success rates.
Okay, so a system of shared accountability.
It's so vague. I wonder
Well,
if
and that
maybe
also means,
accreditation.
so who's
But-
accountable?
So this is what I mean to say. If we go to handout page 2, the top bullet point says, we recommend CTC to convene regular statewide gatherings to engage model sponsors, collect exemplary practices. So like, once again, we're overlapping with other groups.
Right.
Oh, 42. It's slide 42.
Well, and the feasibility about this one says it would require a task force to develop this system,
Could you?
analyze success rate, support programs, allocate resources. Well, that just sounds like it's going to be a lot of work.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, right, feasibility, right?
Yeah.
Would you look at this one? Rebecca, if you go to slide 42. Isn't slide 42 a better version of this?
Where's the-
The difference that,
Does this, because it's a program standard, this puts all the accountability on the program.
Yep.
Which is different than a shared accountability system.
So we
one's
want
about
and
program, one's about CTC.
for
yes.
Right.
CTC. What? Oh, hear me out. What if we copy the words from this slide and make that the slide? Because this eats like 3 slides and then put CTC instead of program standard.
Well,
Does that make sense? Or say be updated, emphasize weight programs use and something about CTC.
this one, the shared accountability is only about disproportionate success rates.
Oh, but the next couple slides are about all the other things.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ooh.
And look, it does say some data required for analysis should be set by CTC. So that is the same, yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I've been looking
Oh,
at the words.
makes my
and
brain hurt.
find-
Some of the things
Just-
coming up are
just-
interesting.
Yeah, just the
Mhm.
overlaps make me like,
I'd say give it
One,
50.
like when I look
Yeah.
at, I'm gonna find this slide. There's one that talks about how CTC has to find model sponsors and have them present.
Well,
Where I'm
the
a different one, where I'm like,
cross-pollinating.
this is the same thing in a
Yeah.
different
Thing as
group.
Right.
Hang on, I'm gonna just put the words from here so I can see it.
Look at slide 10.
Open this in two. I need like two versions of.
Well, this second one after the shared accountability is just that CTC update their webpage.
Right.
Is that important enough to make it a whole group recommendation?
I
Or,
think it should be on one of those bullet points.
well, it could be one of these interim actions. Is that what
Right.
you mean? That update your webpage, that shouldn't-
Cost.
So look
If
at
it incurs the cost, we have to make it mandated. That's how I feel.
look at these.
Nobody works for free, not even me anymore. I'm here for free. Full
I was
disclosure.
gonna
Bad
say, I
green
don't know
tea.
what you mean.
Bad
Getting
green
a paycheck?
tea.
You're getting paid for this.
No, not this.
Oh,
That's-
yeah.
So
Ben,
we're
you're
gonna-
not.
Oh,
Oh.
so far, like
Okay.
out of the 5
So I'm
recommendations we
seeing
can do, I think they
there-
4 of them
place
live
like
with
that,
other
that's too-
groups.
Okay,
So I think
that's fine. I mean,
I have them side by side even.
yeah,
Can we find a
so
different intent behind them?
Rebecca, look at slides 9 and 10. And tell me, do you think that matches up with what we're saying right now?
Oh, it's on 9 and 10 too?
Yeah.
Mhm.
CTC convene regular statewide gatherings for the entire preparation
'Cause it's
community.
also on 42.
And then 10 recommends model sponsors collect exemplary practices from the TPA and use it.
I mean, another thing you could
10,
do is just move the slide down to
42.
be next to that other one.
50.
Yeah.
Because
You could
remember,
also mush them together.
Yeah.
If you're gonna convene people and they could, and then part of their
I mean-
task in convening is
Yeah.
I feel like
have model.
it is two different things, but I think that could be combined, right?
Well,
There
it's
is
one of
no
the
thing-
things they could do.
Well, if we
Yeah.
can
Yes.
eliminate from 50 down,
Right, right,
we're trying to,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
You kind of give them, what do they do when they
Mhm.
convene?
Mhm.
Are they just convening to sit around and say hi?
Yeah.
Or are they creating
Yep.
model examples, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I might move the slide, so it's next to the other one,
Okay.
and then.
So
Because,
the whole group's next and then
yeah, because
everyone else sees it.
is the opportunity for each individual person to go in and
Something like that.
comment. And then there's gonna be another round,
Yeah.
and you're gonna get split up, and you're gonna have to join a different group.
Don't make us do that.
You know?
My only caution about that is if we've labeled reference a different slide and then we mix up the slides, those
Yeah.
reference numbers won't be there, but I don't know if anybody else did that.
I'm not sure if it is.
Let me check.
We could also just copy and paste the text underneath this text so that people can see it. if
And make a
nothing
little
below.
note
From
on
side
under
50.
something.
Like we could put it in the speaker notes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Oh, there
Yeah.
we go.
Or make a note on the slide itself.
Yeah.
Mhm.
They seem pretty sacred.
They're so nice.
Am I logged in? Oh, I'm not logged in. Okay. I'm gonna copy and paste it into the other slide.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So are you doing 50 to 910? Or are you doing 50 to 42?
I'm doing just 50. Will you do me a favor for 51? I think that goes with the bullet pointed slide you were talking about
Yeah,
earlier. Remember,
okay, thank
can
you.
you do that one with like speaker notes or however you think
Mhm.
appropriate? And I'm doing it here.
I'm gonna put from slide 51
Are you doing it underneath?
in the speaker notes, yeah.
Okay, in the speaker notes.
And then I'm gonna put, because I never look at the speaker notes, I'm gonna do a comment. Please see the speaker notes.
Yeah, let's do it that way. I don't want to mess with those slides.
Mm-hmm. Because I don't know if they've gotten to that one, because they've edited it, did. Yeah. I'm gonna click it again. Not sure I understand the intent behind 54, so when somebody has time,
Oh, I understand the intent of 54.
did you write?
That's the one that I was like, No, I did not write that.
Okay.
Which one is 54? Sorry.
Okay.
Will you read it out loud?
The RDATP work group, wait, Rebecca, you ready? Okay. Recommends that the existing CalTPA survey be reviewed and revised to ensure it gathers relevant, meaningful data about each of the work group focus areas. The survey would include both closed-ended and open-ended items and incorporated within each of the approved TPA models.
So
So,
right now there's a survey about the TPA, but it's
Yeah.
not about the focus areas of like formative in nature, embedded within program.
Okay.
It's just like, were you supported?
Well, and apparently it's only given to the Cal TPA takers, not Ed TPA or FAST.
And it's only, yes, you're not wrong.
So if we
And
think,
is that only,
if we
is
think,
it only when you pass?
So I think there's multiple different surveys that go out. One was layered in with your credential when you get your prelim, which means you had to have passed. I do think there's one that TPA gives as well. And then there's ones model sponsors have to give, or sponsors have to give, like programs. We also survey our folks about it.
concerned about survey fatigue at all?
Oh, yeah.
maybe there should just be one survey
I would agree.
that everybody receives so that models can be compared.
Mhm.
You know, so each program sponsor isn't asking their own questions that advantage or disadvantage themselves or others.
Should the CTC design and distribute that survey?
Say that again.
Should the CTC then design and distribute that
Well,
survey?
it seems like there ought to be one survey to all TPA takers, regardless of model, and regardless of whether they passed or failed,
Agreed.
that everybody responds to the same prompts. And who else could do it except CTA do it? And
Yeah.
it could be appended to your credential application. You
Yeah.
know,
It could be at time of submission.
yeah, it's like when you apply for your credential, it could be just another click on that screen of, and here, take this.
Well, I think one of the concerns was, what about the people who fail? Then you're not getting their voice, right?
So we have to, so yeah, I said pass fail, but yeah, if it's on the credential application, you don't get the fail. So it has to be through some route that gets
Submission.
everybody
Has to be submission.
submission when you submit your TPA, no matter what route.
Mhm.
So
So to
So
me, it
That's
just
what I
needs,
understand.
it might need revision of language, but that
Well,
is
so
the
this-
practice.
So we recommend that, and it's not the existing Cal TPA, it should be that
The CTC
stu-
sponsor,
that
you
it's
got it,
just the
Rebecca?
CTC, that the CTC should gather relevant, meaningful data about each of the, not the focus areas, about, because the focus areas are going to disappear. It's like
Yeah.
this, so about the, basically,
Formative in nature, the charge.
well, aren't we looking to get information about the TPA experience?
So I think the intent, I remember this, I didn't write this. I remember talking about it in the whole group. And I think the idea was, hey, we're coming together to say, make it more formative in nature, make it less duplicative, make it appropriate to beginning teachers, make it embedded within programs. How do we know if we were successful? So I
So-
think that's where it came from.
So if we say the work group recommends that the CTC gather relevant and meaningful data about the TPA experience,
again.
including
Our
blah,
charge.
blah, blah.
Yeah, the work
the
group
dots,
charge.
What
Yeah.
were the dots doing again?
Formative in nature, embedded within program.
support.
Yep. Not duplicative, appropriate to beginning teachers. That's what I remember off our charge off the top of my head. There's other things too, but they're less
The
relevant.
things that we think are
Yeah.
good or bad about the existing experience.
Yes.
Like the bad things, but also, you know, to what extent are you informed, or what, you know, so it's
For some reason I can't hear anymore. It's just like, it's gone quieter and louder a couple times, but now I can't hear Beverly at all.
Try talking again to Beverly. I'm just
And you're
curious.
complaining about that?
Oh, yeah, I am. Okay, I'm just gonna turn my volume up.
I
Just
also
trying.
need you closer so that
Okay,
No, you
I'm
can't
so
see us,
loud,
but
I'm
you
sorry.
can you hear me now?
yes, thanks.
No,
Sorry, I just made myself I made it really loud and then you talked to them. So,
I'm sorry.
yes, good, thank you. No, it's not you.
So again, Kate does a much better job of making it the right language, but basically what we want to say is that CTC gather relevant, meaningful data
Thank you.
about the TPA experience, including formative in nature, embeddedness, support, given appropriateness, non-duplicative, and from all credential completers, including those who pass and fail their TPA.
Upon submission of the teacher performance task.
So it's prior to, and actually that's
Before they
part
get
of-
their scores
if-
too, because they're gonna be real cranky.
right, that becomes.
Yeah, I don't want it. Yeah, I want it before they get their scores.
Right,
But the
so-
trouble now is that we have multiple versions, right?
Right, so what we want now is the CTC to require this when they submit their TPA. It's the same standard language, no matter which form of TPA you're taking, that here, do this little survey at the end.
Do the survey at the beginning or at the end. Everybody, here's the survey. Here you go. It does cost money because we have to pay someone at the CTC to develop the survey.
CTC will absorb it. But
But
we have to make clear in the
It would just be
language.
someone who's already staffed.
I don't understand how much.
We have to make clear in the language that when they are in the process of submitting this high stakes TPA, that if they then go onto the survey and complain about how awful it is, it's not going to impact their score.
Right.
Because there's sufficient level of distrust around state operations that it's like, oh, I better say nice things.
You're right.
Or,
You're right.
you
Because it's going to be linked to their submissions. So,
right, and so. Yeah,
you're right.
so. Maybe it's not linked to their submission in that same way. Maybe what it does is they submit and they submit with their email address. And what it generates is a follow-up email to them.
Click on that.
No, I
Zero
think they
click
will.
on.
That says, respond to the survey. We're gonna get better data than we get now.
I think.
If you
there
tie
are
it to their
enough-
submission, I think
I-
there's too much danger of them feeling like it could.
I feel like there's enough standardized assessments that ask you like, how did you prepare? What kind of courses did you have access to along with your demographic data? Like, I feel like the vast majority of standardized tests that College Board runs, they ask questions like that. With the intent of understanding demographic data of populations.
I also would
That-
prefer capturing everyone's voice instead of a fraction of people's volunteer voice, because who leaves
the
Yelp
crankies.
reviews? Yeah,
Mhm.
who leaves the reviews? The
Yeah.
people are unhappy, right?
Yeah.
Voluntarily.
But if it's an immediate generation
right.
of the link, see, I'm
I
just
understand.
worried that they're stressed about submitting, they're making sure they got the right video.
They
they're
spend
making
2
sure they did-
hours on
They do all
submission
of
day.
this, and then they're
Mhm.
ready to hit click and be, okay, it's done.
I think
And then
you
it's
do it at the
dead.
beginning.
Okay.
I think it
When
was
they
right at the
register?
beginning.
Well, then they have.
No,
the
because
support,
then they
yeah.
feel even more like it's gonna impact their
You should
results.
do it, it should pop up, okay, you're ready to submit, here's your submission portal. Fill out the demographic survey. Right, how did you prepare, who prepared you? Rate your level of preparation and then put it in.
I would see that as it's gonna impact my score. I would.
that does exist for CPACE for the, one
Yeah.
more month that we're doing it. That does exist. Like, how did you prepare? Is at the beginning of the assessment. I think that is a valid option. And if we have a standardized survey and we tell Ed TPA, you have to use this, Cal TPA, you have to use this, because that's the other thing. Like, if CTC does it, like CTC doesn't control Ed TPA submissions, or they're not
It has a disclaimer that says something like, your responses to this survey will not impact your score in any way.
I made mistakes.
You
Oh,
know,
no, I was going through.
something that.
Yeah,
you make sure
but
that-
this
Yes,
will not,
very necessary.
So I wasn't sure
Mhm.
if.
It's anonymous.
Yes,
and you
That's not
can't
gonna
get coded if you answer weird or if you put
It might be
ABC in
something
it.
Right.
Okay, I was
You
gonna say,
can't
it
get
might be-
coded for weird or
Because I thought it was
data.
weird that this.
Yeah,
These responses are.
So someone else is
unconnected to
covering
your
it.
Yeah.
Scoring of your
Cool.
GPA.
I was
I
like,
think so.
to me, it didn't make sense. It was.
I had
with
to,
this
like-
group, So
Right, and that's,
it's good.
Time
Yeah.
check?
Perfect.
3:30,
We're good.
Yeah.
We're gonna
I
be.
think we're
10
gonna,
minutes?
Yeah, sure.
yeah,
Okay,
I
good.
think we're gonna be okay.
I don't think the last two actually even need much.
I need to recuse myself. Okay, but first, 52, how we feel?
Which one?
The survey.
This is what it says. Oh,
I just have it.
We look, do you want me to look, guys?
That's okay. When you say the teacher performance task,
TPA,
I know,
TPA assessment.
okay.
Mhm. Words are hard. Oh no.
Command Z, Command Z.
It's
Oh,
like,
no. Do you remember when undo didn't exist really?
Yeah.
that was a hard life.
Oh my goodness. Or when you really had to save or it didn't save. I remember those days too.
Remember when Word started auto saving and it was like the most exciting and amazing thing that had ever happened?
It really, literally game changer. Game changer. Um,
I'm good, except at the end, instead of just saying this will not impact TPA scores.
It is communicated that.
Yeah, it's like the
Okay.
candidate knows, the candidate is informed that
Yeah.
this will not impact their TPA
I
score.
hate that.
Cool.
Yeah,
Completion of the survey responses will not impact TPA scores.
yeah, that's good.
Cool.
Yeah, I think that's good.
53, by the way, the commission was all about, like
I
in the
need
meeting.
to-
Yeah.
I felt because I
That was
really wanna
crazy.
be on that committee, so I'm gonna be like,
Which
this one's
is
great.
53,
let's
the
do this
AI.
one. Yeah.
They were all about it. They were like,
I
we
know.
need this.
Yeah,
They
I
want
read
to
the
save
comments, they all
money.
liked it.
So my little bit scary thing is when we replace humans with computers, right? There's a lot of ethical implications. So I really want to be part of this, not because I'm completely in favor of AI, but because I think that'll get a new ending of some of the
Also, AI
moral
has
stuff.
it has a ways to go before
Before it becomes something, but it will.
it will. I mean,
But I really want to be part of that community, so I feel like I shouldn't give feedback on this one.
no, give feedback on this
I
one.
want to do the thing.
And I also don't know what I would change. The commission's already all about this,
Yeah.
and I don't want to make it more narrow. I like it broad. The committee
It'll
should
cost
figure out.
money.
Oh yeah, no, I know. But the commission already is like, yes, we want to support it.
Was this included in the feasibility document?
Oh yeah, no.
They were, right?
Yeah, it is on page 12. 12. CTC staff development convene. Allocation of resources.
So it would be current staff members.
No.
No,
it
staff
would be a work
development
group.
convene,
Okay.
a work group.
But I can tell you
Okay.
flat out, like the
It's
commission
gonna
was
happen.
about it, so I think
Yeah.
it would happen
It'll
just based off the board meeting.
For anyone watching the webcast, hi, call me. I'll get things. My husband's gonna be like, again. Flight. Okay.
We have one more, which is the one you and I betted heads on last time.
Yeah, that one's scary.
Oh, yeah. And then somebody else messed with it. I forget who.
Well, basically, you couldn't do
can't
this anyway
be
without
for
changing the ed
profits.
code.
Yeah. This is the one where I was looking at like,
And
Where's the
it
feasibility?
would make right now the only feasible option would be fast.
oh, that's all that was going.
Oh, it's a
Right
super
here,
one.
still page 12 right underneath.
Page 12. Okay.
Let me find it.
Oh, never mind. Yeah, no, they're at the bottom.
Yeah. Yeah, they'd have to change the ed code.
This
Can I
feasibility
look up the
report
ed
is
code?
awful.
Huh?
This feasibility report needs a lot more.
Well, but
This
it
is
can be-
not
It was a lot of
the
it.
was like a
Since
brainstorm.
the
bill.
cost of making this happen
Right.
is not reflected in here.
No, and I mean, the other piece of feasibility of this recommendation would be the only viable option right now would be fast.
Yeah.
Because Ed TPA and Cal TPA would both be out.
They said one of the things that was interesting. So we were in the last group together, but you had a flight or something to catch, I think. So CTC owns the assessments.
Right.
Mhm.
I did not know that. I thought for some reason Pearson did, but CTC owns them.
Yeah.
So,
Well, CTC owns Cal TPA. They don't own Ed TPA.
oh, I didn't know that.
No.
Okay.
So then Cal
Yeah.
TPA,
Yeah, Cal TPA is when TPA was developed, it was mandated that the state do one of them.
Yeah.
And the state was going to be the only one.
Yeah.
But then the UC and CSU did PACT, which turned into Ed TPA.
Yes.
And Fresno did FAST.
Yeah.
But then PACT sold it. So, but CTC only owns Cal TPA.
So is Pearson owns Ed? Okay. Because I said something like in the Zoom when I was sharing out, I kind of mentioned that conversation and they're like, no, we own the they probably did say Cal TPA and I just didn't think to ask about Ed TPA at that point.
Well, sometimes you hear those terms as interchangeable, like Cal TPA, you think generically
Yeah.
is TPA. You know, like just
Right. Part of me thinks though, like, isn't this local scoring? In one, it's not, it's bigger than local scoring.
it's meant to be bigger than local
Mhm.
school.
Yeah, it's bigger than local scoring, but it feels like there will be duplication if this is one thing and the local scoring becomes a thing. You see what I'm
Well,
saying?
this is just, I mean, to me, I think we just scratched this recommendation. It's not doable,
Yeah, I don't think
both
it's
for ed
possible.
code, but also for feasibility of FAST cannot serve the whole state. But also, and I know we disagree, Kate, but the idea that a business should not profit out of an education thing is, businesses create our textbooks and they make our desks and furniture and they make our whiteboards and they make our
I'm
laptops.
sending up for an AI committee, which will definitely be a corporate,
Right. And
right,
so
entity that we have to align with.
the
'cause state
principle
money.
that businesses shouldn't profit off of education,
They do.
they do in
Thousands,
every
prestige.
aspect of, photos and, every aspect of it. So it.
Yep.
it-
And I have a question, Beverly.
Yeah.
So why would FAST be the only one? Because it also includes the state commission.
Oh, I guess
Yeah.
so Cal TPA would be there
So
too.
Cal TPA,
It-
it's
except-
essentially just
that-
eliminating.
Well, although even though Cal TPA is owned by the commission, it's operated by Pearson.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So,
When you think about the actual TPA model sponsor,
right.
that means Pearson's no longer the model sponsor, although I guess they could keep a contract with Pearson to do
Right. And
things.
so what's the difference?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, you're right, Rebecca.
I don't know, like, I don't know. I think if we scrap this, there will be people who feel really strongly and
But I think
Be
that the
upset.
ideological position behind it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
That, that a for-profit place can't make money out of education. So what do we do with every aspect of education that,
Yeah. So the feasibility part of it and the ed code part of it, what if we write a justification? Does anybody have the ed code handy that we put
Yeah.
in the speaker
want me to
notes
put
or
the link?
something?
Yeah,
Yeah, that'd be great.
there
then-
are speaker notes now.
Awesome. And then maybe we create just a little blurb that,
I am also looking for the percent of support.
it was
oh yeah, do that.
it's right here. Look,
What page?
it's 25% is strong support and 25% is support.
So 50 is not very high in general.
It's pretty low.
It's on handout.
And strong
one,
oppose is
TPA
10 and oppose
5A,
is 10.
page
35.
35. Thank you. My hands are slow. Okay. This would not prohibit the use of an outside company to house the equipment or provide program
Right.
needed to submit evidence of components. You just support the separation of the model sponsorship and the profit-based company. But somebody opposes because it's important for programs to have choice.
But like they can right now.
Is it?
Well, no, programs can right now. I can make my own local scoring thing. I just have to go through a bunch of hoops and pay millions of dollars to make it happen.
Right, which is why it was
Which
so
is why I
surprising
can't, because I
that
don't have
fast-
money.
That fast occurred.
To develop a TPA and maintain the scoring process, data collection and reporting. You higher ed institutions have the capacity to do so. For a TPA that can be used beyond.
Fresno only did it because they had an outside grant.
Yeah. I'm concerned if an institution does not want to use the CTC sponsored model, we could have a proliferation of single institutions creating TPAs. I know, proliferation. I wish it had been, it was not. I don't think this serves the state well either, as comparability across programs becomes extremely problematic. So, but there are some people that support ending the TPA. I feel comfortable.
Well, that's not gonna help it.
I feel comfortable leaving dropping this recommendation due to the ed code situation we have going on there. And then people are gonna take half an hour to kind of duke it out. So
Yeah.
like, I feel like maybe that's not the correct metaphor, but I think that people now get an opportunity to process it. And there's more voices in the room. And there's expert voices in the room. So I feel like logistically, I think we've come to kind of the end of that conversation, and we have a lot of really good recommendations. Did we block out the ones that we moved? Yes. No, 47, 48, 49. I feel like we bumped those to others, right? So I'm gonna do the box.
I'm just gonna drop boxes and you change the words on them, okay?
Yeah, perfect. 50, I think we're gonna keep.
Yeah, delete that.
Yeah.
I got happy about it.
And I like getting rid of stuff. So that's
But
fine.
really for just purely educational curiosity. I've heard people through this process compare a TPA to like the bar, or boards for other professions. So, Kate, you help me understand why it is important to have multiple versions and not a standard statewide. This is the level, the board exam or the bar exam, like one. Why is it important that we have multiple?
In the original creating legislation where they said that the state was required to develop one, it was sort of meant to be that the state would not then be the designer of curriculum, because when you have a test that then every program would have to teach to the same test, then you are losing faculty control of curriculum for local programs. And so that's why local programs were given the option of designing their own as long as it would meet the same standards for assessment. And it is a long higher ed tenet that faculty control the curriculum. And so if you take that away, if you look at all the ways we're talking about embedding, where the assessment itself is embedded into the curriculum to more or less extent, you end up with a state mandated curriculum, which faculty at every IHE is going to push back on. Even if they all chose voluntarily to use this in assessment, it's pretty important to faculty that they still have that option. And within the issue, we used to have an executive vice chancellor who told our academic senate that there is no such thing as academic freedom in a licensed profession. And I happen to agree with that, but because in a licensed profession, there are standards you have to meet, but you can imagine how that went over with the academic senate.
So it's maybe a little bit the nuance of our profession, like our commitment to the a teacher's autonomy. I'm just trying to think why law professors, obviously.
It's a good point. It's a good point. And, part of the whole reason TPA was developed to have three purposes. It wasn't just to assess individual candidates' level of readiness. It was also meant to be part of accreditation to show program, adherence and quality. But the third one was for public assurance that the state was doing a good job in, holding teachers to a set standard of, that third one. And so that was where the analogy to a bar or other kinds of things came in, that other professions had this bar and that we were equally a profession, with equally high levels of quality assurance. So those two two things do kind of conflict, that there isn't just one, you know, set, one bar, one assessment. Because it conflicts with sort of the academic freedom issue. That's my
Thank
best.
you for that.
That's
Thank
my
you for
best
that.
understanding of that history, Rebecca.
I appreciate it.
Knows it best.
Well done, everybody. Good job. We are all entitled to a little bio break, I think. That was a lot of really heavy thinking.
I didn't think so.
Thank
You guys did, so thank
My
you.
brain
No,
is
thank God for
tired.
you
It's
guys
good,
because
though.
I was only able to weigh in once you guys had figured out all the crossovers.
Wait. So used to picking up everything.
People are just like, check out what I need, and then I just have like an abundance of things I carry. Curious about local scoring, because I read in the comments how there was like, everyone wants it, but it seems like no one wants it. You know what I mean?
Might be that people may want it, but maybe for different reasons.
I think part of the challenge is that we don't know what it'll look like.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it really, I think this is one of those areas where it depends on other stuff, like. Yeah, what does embedding look like? Well, that's gonna then dictate what local scoring could look like. So it's hard to. I can see pros and cons and stuff.
Because I think I saw your comment on one of the slides I commented on too, is basically that there was too many options on that one. Like it has to, I feel like if you give, we talked about this in our group too, if you give a program 5 options to choose from, they're going to choose the path of least resistance, right? So does it actually help? You know, if someone is doing 100%.
Ina, can you hear us clearly?
Yes, I can, sorry.
No, that's okay. I just want to make sure the sound here is all good. Hi, Tina.
Hey, guys.
So yeah, like I don't know, does it work if one group is doing 1%, 100%?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah, I don't know.
yeah.
That's why I'm here.
It's
I
right.
wanna talk about this because it matters. and-
Yeah, okay, so
Do-
did she send out the new slides?
I don't see those in here. She said that she tried to copy it, but when she did, the comments didn't go, like, move over.
Oh, okay.
So I think
Just
my
open here.
understanding was just use the one that we have.
Oh, there is a local scoring in here, okay. It's at the top, number
It's-
3.
Number 3, okay.
I was
It's
looking
slide
at the
number
bottom.
3?
Yeah,
Okay.
local score, right?
Oh, okay, yeah.
So it's all these kind of peach colors then, yeah?
Mhm.
Okay.
It came from program standard 5.
And we have the same instruction on so we're trying to consolidate, correct?
I believe so.
Okay. Well, that didn't work out too well in my last group.
We didn't.
We got through about 2 of them, yeah, and we're like, I think we're done.
Some good comments here from Melinda and Kathy.
Oh, I had this one.
Why do we want local scoring? What will it do? For programs, candidates, both. Maybe just kind of rethinking what local scoring has looked like in the past and what it could look like in the future.
Yeah, and oh, I have to reload, sorry. I just got a message, it's been updated. I want to say something inside of it.
Oh, yeah, there was a few more.
Okay,
Okay.
fantastic, thank you for your hard work. Okay, so yeah, I'm still sticking with what I was saying earlier about this first slide, was like, there's way too many choices. I don't understand if we're going from one thing where we were talking about another group where we're like, okay, so we're going to score the tasks that are embedded in the courses. So are we going to pull apart then the TPA and then place it in like their inclusion course, and they're going to place it in like their EL core course, and then it's going to be in their methods course, and like, is that how we're going to do it? Or then, and then at the other end of it, it's just TPP score percentage, like whatever they want of what, of an entire TPA submission, or what is, how does that look like? So I feel like that maybe there needs to be some whittling down. I don't know if we can do that. Can we do that, or do we have to?
Well, but I think this is
Yeah.
that is the question
Yeah.
that to me is, unless we have the answer to that question, it's hard to say, it's hard to answer this or to address this, because I mean, I think the larger question that I have, are we saying that we're gonna do that? Are we gonna split this thing apart and embed it within the courses in that way?
Yeah.
So if we say that, then we're saying actually the performance assessment nature of this, the sort of summative
Mhm.
culminating performance assessment, we're getting rid of that. Do we want to do that? And I don't feel like I have enough like information or that we've discussed it enough to say like, yeah, that's what I'm getting behind to do. Like, what are the benefits of having a performance assessment that's separate from coursework? Versus what does it mean to actually pick apart tasks and make them part of coursework? And so anyways, I feel like that's where
Yeah.
because that feels unclear to me, then it's hard.
I'm too lazy to watch the other.
I think we've been talking about that for a long time. Like, do we need this whole thing at the end? And that's, we've had a lot of discussions over the past year about how some of us feel about that. But I think, but what you just said was like the summative nature of the TPA, which is not supposed to be summative, right? It's supposed to be formative. So
Right.
formative, breaking it up into small chunks throughout the course is formative, because then you can, in theory, have access to feedback, like timely feedback,
Right.
right? Where you don't necessarily get any feedback. I didn't take the TPA, but from what I'm understanding at this group, you're not really getting any feedback at all.
I took the TPA.
Okay.
You get
Did you get-
scores.
You
get
get scores
scores.
and you get generic comments that
Mhm.
are very, very generic. You
Okay.
would not be able to redo it
Mhm.
based on these comments.
Okay.
But if
So-
but could summative still mean you can take that information and then it'll help support you in your induction? Like I'm not sure it means formative within your program. I don't know, or if it means like formative throughout your career.
Yeah, I think that's what this continuum slides kind of.
Right.
What is it? Is it something that you're
Oh,
gonna?
hi, Tina. I've never been in a group.
Tina said.
Wait, so it's Tina and us and us.
And us, yeah.
2, 3, 4, 5.
Anyway, those are very big.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, that still we haven't come to a conclusion on. But those are my thoughts about the first slide. I don't know that there's anything to condense, because I think it's more like taking it out. I don't know if we're.
Was our CTC person, is it you?
Yeah.
So scoring in general. Tell us a little bit about like the history, and I know Tina could probably help us too with some of the history, like what is it like? What is it what designed to look like or supposed to? I don't know what the right verbiage is. It's more.
I think Mary.
He's already looking.
I think, Tina, you probably have some.
Executive Director Sandy and, Dr. Sloan are the experts on local scoring.
You were so close.
My expertise is in admiration of somebody who actually did it and very, very successfully. Gold standard right there at UC Santa Barbara. So, she'd be the one.
All right, she's our person, okay.
Oh, she's our person.
All right.
Yeah, I don't know
You
about.
can be a little risk here. My boss right under.
Yeah, that's okay.
So what was your question again? The microphone is a little bit garbled, sort of, for me. Say again.
We were just asking about local scoring.
Sure.
We're looking at slide 4.
Yeah.
You scooch her closer. Yes. We're just looking at slide 4 and we're just looking at what local scoring is. I don't know, did you want to share a little bit about your, like, I know you had some ideas on what, like, all of the local, like.
Well, I think the bigger question is, what does the TPA look like? Like, is it like, what is it? What do we mean by embedding? And if, depending on what we mean by embedding, local scoring could look very different. If it's actually an assignment in a course, of course it's locally scored because the instructor will score it. However, if it's not, then, and if we keep this performance assessment as a performance assessment that is separate from coursework in some ways, then that's a different conversation. So I'm finding it difficult to really wrap my mind around local scoring in that way. I have locally scored before with the PACT. We scored our own candidates before, so I have that experience of doing it in that way. But I'm wondering if we're grappling with something different here about whether or not we should actually have a separate performance assessment, or whether we're embedding it in that kind of.
They're good questions, and I think too that this has come up for a long time in our work, that we saw in a number of ways that when we discussed this in our group too, when the TPA moved from being locally scored, scored by programs, to a centralized scoring model to improve the reliability of scoring across programs. And program faculty were no longer involved in looking at the candidate's work, understanding the rubrics, looking at the evidence, all of those sorts of things, that we lost something in the process of the TPA work in California. Most of what we lost was the ability for program faculty to see other elements of their candidates' work. In other words, the kind of feedback we would get in my program that I ran at the time and from other people, if you're a course instructor teaching about how to support students with special needs in the classroom, but you don't actually supervise candidates in the classroom, so you don't actually ever see what they do in a classroom with what you taught them in your course. But with the TPA, where our models are very holistic. In other words, they require the candidates to take everything they've learned from across their program and incorporate it into an actual act of teaching or performance of teaching. Well, then course instructors got to see video of their candidates teaching lessons towards the end of the program and see to what extent what they had hoped to see in their candidates' practice was actually in their practice. So that's a really long way of saying that the local scoring, when a lot of different people in the program were involved, had real benefits for both the program improvement and candidate feedback. And I think that's what we were trying to figure out whether we could capture within these new recommendations that we're bringing forward.
And I'm looking at that because Josh, I don't know if you were in that group, but I know I was in this group that wrote this.
I think I was too.
Okay, then you and I were both in this group.
Tina might have been too.
I don't think so. Tina and I have never been in the same group.
Oh, funny.
Sorry, not to exclude you, Tina, just because I have a weird memory like that. But I remember, I think it was Beverly had told me something very similar to what you're saying, Tina. So that's kind of like what we were talking about in here. And so that's why we're not like, when that help those bullet points, it's like we want to bring back that local element, but not make it all local. So kind of just hybrid, I don't even know how to say it anymore. But like, that's why it says, it could be that local scoring could be just a percentage or maybe just a certain question or, you know what I mean? Just so that local scoring is a part of it, making programs more accountable, not 100% accountable because it's already been down that route. And now it's been down this route. So kind of, trying to get it to a point where you can kind of have the best of both worlds, I think was what the goal of that was.
I think we all agreed that we thought that faculty should be involved.
Right.
And that there was benefit. I think the trickiness came up with the differences between programs. So when I did local scoring, we had a much smaller student body, group of candidates. So we had enough people and there was access to graduate students who we could train to support that process. In other programs, there isn't like my current program, we have over 500 candidates and my faculty is small. So our faculty couldn't actually handle that, that number. So trying to figure out what would account for the diversity of programs, but still require faculty participation in scoring because we think it's important. And I think that's probably why you see the options here.
Right. And so that's why we were thinking along those lines, like, yeah, there are programs who could probably score 100%. And then there are programs like
Yeah.
yours where you're like, they might opt out to just like, you know what, we'll just score maybe one component of it, or we'll score 10% of our students, you know what I mean? 10% total. And then Pearson can score the other 90%. And even in that way, you could do it would be a good reliability, validity, whatever, because if you're 10% all passed and Pearson's only, you know what I mean? Kind of question like, are we too generous with our grading? Are we not on the same level? You know, or even looking at it as maybe because it's local, because it's your program, you know what you taught your candidates to do, that maybe your program should be doing the video component because you've been grooming them. Is that the right word? I'm sorry. God. That's the wrong word.
Preparing them.
We are preparing them. We have been preparing them. So therefore, maybe the video component should be the part that's locally scored because it aligns with everything the university or the program has been doing, whereas the other components can be, you know, for logistical reasons, be done by a third party.
I think you both make super important recommendation or points here. And it's reminding me of when we were first scoring PACT way back when, it wasn't a program requirement in the beginning. In other words, what's the word I'm thinking of? It wasn't high stakes yet for a long time, for about 8 years while we were developing the work. And so we got to try out all different ways, excuse me, of doing local scoring. And we did a couple of those kinds of things. We selectively took, for multiple subjects, it was easy. We could take, 5 candidates and have everybody collaboratively score it and talk about those 5 pieces of work so that you really could understand what was happening with, the program. Or you could do just the video component of the TPA and do everybody's and do that collaboratively. And so we did all of those different things and we got to try out different things over the years, and doing the different things really helped us. It's like, because we had choices as a program, we could say, gosh, we know assessment is something that we need to work on in our program. So what are our candidates doing here? And then it wasn't an overburdensome kind of thing. And Shayna is right. Our program was small-ish, compared to a lot of others when we were doing local scoring. And it was tough to score everyone every year. So I'm not sure that's a requirement that we want to make.
A question about local scoring and who's local is my
Yeah.
And because every single one of your candidates has some form of clinical practice with a cooperating teacher. And to what extent are they considered adjunct, informally adjunct faculty to your program? Because they are doing the whole placement, They also have a supervisor who's visiting them from the campus, and then they have the faculty who are teaching their courses. I'm just wondering who's included when you say local scoring?
I think that's another critical piece. And I remember somewhere back in the requirements, somebody had a suggestion of the county ed offices having some sort of role, but I don't recall what it was. But I remember also people talking about local being where the candidates are student teaching or intern teaching. So the communities in which they're teaching and the people who are involved in those, or the educators who are involved in those, are part of local. But again, I think that's a really good question, Mary. I don't know the answer, but I would love it in a perfect world to go beyond teacher preparation program course instructors and faculty.
I think there's a math problem when you talk about how many candidates are enrolled in a methods course. And if the methods course faculty member,
is 1 to 15, you know, that's a big load, big scoring load. So I don't know, I'm just wondering, because I think one of the things you were teasing out, Tina, that is, I think was a huge benefit to local scoring when we were doing it primarily, was the cohesion it brought, the sense of having a common understanding of what the rubrics are, what the tasks are, what our preparation was, you know, and extending that out to your cooperating teacher population seems to be an opportunity to strengthen everybody kind of is understanding what the developmental arc is for this teacher. So I'm going to stop talking now because now I'm talking about quickly.
Well, because I like that, what you said, Mary, because I think that was what we were talking about, that like, because there's that great element that was there, but now it's not there because it's pawned off to a third party. But then we're looking at what you said about, you know, some programs have 500, some have 20. But if you say something like one of our little bullet points, like if every program does 10%, then that would be equitable. It would be 10% of 500, 10% of 20 students. You know what I mean? Then then most programs could live with 10% or 20%. You know what I mean? Whatever percentage we put, CTC puts out there that is locally scored, so that it's not a financial and human burden on the institute, but it still requires the institute to score and be up with the scoring.
I can share with you just Fresno State. What happened there, because it is still locally scored, but it's primarily scored by the coaches. The faculty who are teaching the courses aren't very involved in scoring. So they're not, like, to get back to what Tina was saying about that opportunity for faculty to see how candidates are applying what they're learning, that's not really happening. So there is the risk of something like that.
Are coaches the same things? Is that the same thing as a
Supervisor.
program supervisor?
Yes,
So
yes.
that's okay.
And they're considered clinical faculty.
And we do have clinical faculty.
Yeah.
And then I wonder about it doesn't make it, because I do think there's an opportunity for alignment and increasing all of our knowledge in support of candidates. And I'm wondering what payment we provide to, if it's a mentor teacher or a supervisor, like where does that funding come from? So it just, you know, sparks for me that one of the feasibility pieces or one of the consequences is financial. And so thinking about that.
Yeah, if you want to expand the local into, so at Cal State, you get 2 students, as a supervisor, you get 2 students per credit. But that's
That's what Fresno State is.
yeah, so that's what you get paid for is for working with those. So 6 for a 3 credit, right? But that doesn't count scoring.
And what is the load of work for that? I'm curious, what all, is it for the whole year? Or is it for a term?
It's a semester, yeah. So you get.
How many observations?
Yeah.
I haven't done it in a few years, but.
At Fresno State, it's 6 observations, and it does include scoring.
Yeah, we don't.
Oh, it does.
At Fresno State.
Yeah. Juliet, my question is, because you guys have coaches doing it, not faculty.
Well, faculty are encouraged.
Right, encourage. Ideally, if it would, like, if Fresno State could, they would want faculty to do it, right? Or do you guys have it set up so that it's better for not? Okay.
No.
You would want faculty to. Okay.
But then there's their training involved in the local
Celebration, absolutely. So,
And are your supervisors compensated for that scoring piece?
no, it's just part of their normal load.
Like CFA.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, but yeah, and then also classroom teachers, if you want them as part of it, that varies greatly from university to district, whatever, what those cooperating teachers actually get paid. So,
you pay
and
your
then-
mentor teachers, or you didn't pay your team? Okay. Nor the district, correct?
They do get paid as assessors. Very much.
Yes, well, in residencies.
Residencies are a little bit different, I know.
Sometimes they get, yeah.
Well, if you look at the way Pearson's doing it now, you go through that whole program, it's $50 an hour, period. Everyone goes through the same training and it's anyone, not anyone. Is it 50? Is it less than 50?
Yeah, for 19, yeah. Okay.
19? Okay, well, never mind. I don't know where she got 50 from. Okay.
So you're going to.
Okay, sorry. Maybe I upped it in my head to emotionally handle it.
Start for the calibration and calibration and 19 and
Okay.
for the scale.
But again, it's also teachers who get to do this. You know what I mean? It doesn't, like right now, Pearson has, if you want to do it, you apply, right? Because you could do it as a teacher, you could do it as a professor, you could do it. There's the criteria for
I
being.
just have to say, that opens up another can of worms in my mind if teachers are working for minimum wage to score these things. I mean, that's wow.
Yeah, but teachers do. And a lot
But then at the same time, like I think I'm pretty good at what I do. Right? I've been teaching for a long time. Somebody said, "Hey, I want your expertise for minimum wage." I'd be like, sorry.
right.
No.
But that's
Yeah.
the rate right now with Pearson.
Yeah,
But then
trying to
you
think of-
question like who wants
Yeah.
to do this, because
Yeah.
most people who become assessors is because they do work at a university
Mhm.
or a program and they want to see the process and they want to support their you're still horrified.
But it is interesting that model of like
Yeah.
if we have supervisors or coaches.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking about what you said. So two candidates, supervising two candidates is one unit of
Yeah.
work, right? And is there a way to think about if everybody does get trained, adding that to the load and what, I mean, you would increase pay, I would imagine, for people who've been doing this a long time and you increase their work responsibility.
You would think, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't see that if a university required their supervisor to do something else without being compensated
That's
for it,
right.
that would go over too well.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
With them or CFA.
Well, that said,
yeah.
take teacher preparation seriously in this state, and we say these are things that that the field needs to improve teacher preparation. Some universities might have to change some structures. I don't think that necessarily the way we do teacher preparation across the board, across universities, is the best way to do it. But there isn't any incentives to help necessarily always to do things differently. I agree that local scoring is a very difficult thing to do within most of the structures of university systems right now. Promotion and tenure for faculty in UCs and CSUs don't include scoring performance assessments. Hey, you're really good at scoring performance assessments. That could be part of your tenure case. You can get, no, it's not, but it could be because there are important things to learn there. I know that's, pie in the sky, but it's got to start somewhere. These organizational structures have to start somewhere. And cooperating teachers who get almost nothing to participate in supporting candidates in the classroom, let's see if there's creative ways that we can get that could support their work better. Back in the days when they had units that were required for growth, I can't remember what they were, growth. Anyway, we were able to provide cooperating teachers with course units, extension course units, when they participated in the scoring work because it was educated work. They were learning about the work. The second thing I would say about this is our cooperating teachers really appreciated being part of the work and having their input heard in terms of, hey, I'm seeing these our candidates, they're part of the program doing X, Y, and Z. I suggest you all consider, A, B, and C, which doesn't happen very often with our mentor teachers. It's mostly preparation programs telling them what to do, not the other way around. But anyway, I'm going to get off my soapbox, but I just wish there was a way for us to make some broad recommendations or suggestions that could start leading down this road.
Recommendation seems to do that. Like, your next two seem to me to be repeating off of each other. And the last one is digging deeper in the weeds. But another question, provocative. It would be a provocateur till you throw me out. One of the commissioners raised the suggestion 2 weeks ago in this very room that we consider using AI to do first round scoring. And I wonder if that were if that were something that we could tolerate, would you want to then bring that human element into it by applying one of these 10% or percentages, or, the moderated human quality? Just tossing that back out to you. That was not my thought.
And I'm all for studying that. That was really big on it last meeting that we had. I think we should have a group to study that because we want to make sure that they're getting valid.
Already tossing his name.
Yeah,
Please start
valid
working group.
feedback. You know what I mean? Because there's always disclaimer, no matter what AI software you use. Like, always make sure you double check this because AI can be wrong. And if Microsoft, if Google, if they're all putting that as disclaimers on their thing, I'd hate to have a whole bunch of teachers coming out being scored by their computer and it's not right. But
Well, I just look at the data usage, how is the data being used, and intellectual properties, and like all those other things people may not think to, because once AI has it, they have it. You can't like, oh, give it back to me. Like it's no, you can't get it back usually. And so who's monitoring those systems and who's in control of those systems? And if the wrong person buys out the main company, then now they have control. What can they do with it? So same thing like there been the DNA test, right? Like, I don't know where my DNA is going to go, who's going to have access to it. Like, it's really scary. And some people like, oh no, it's great. And it is great, but use it with caution, especially
Until there's a clone of you out there.
Yes, I know. Maybe there is. I don't know. Maybe they collected my DNA a long time ago. I have no idea.
Okay. But going back to what you were saying, Tina, I really like what you said, because I'm laughing at you, Josh, with your like, who's going to do it for $19 an hour? But Pearson's getting people to do it for $19 an hour.
yes.
But
Are they?
They have scorers. I mean, they have enough people to score right now, so they have to have a group of people willing to do it. But and even with what Juliet said, that like right now it's part of the coach's job. It just happens to be a part of it. And I'm thinking, well, if you look at the structure, like let's say Cal State LA hires a new batch of mentor teachers, and they get their job description and they're like, here's your units, and by the way, part of your job description is you must score one of your 6 mentees. You can pick your one of your favorite, I don't know, whatever your 6, but your job, part of your job description is to score one of your 6 mentees, you know what I mean? And that just happens to be part of their job description. I don't think, if it's already there and they went into the job, I'm just thinking what Tina says. It's just changing the structure and looking at things.
Do you know
like,
how long it takes to change a job description?
no,
We've been
know,
trying
but,
6.
I know.
We're still visually handicapped, by the way. Okay, 1993 is when our last.
But when you have regulations out, that's why I know like the language is like encourage, but if it's the language is in the CTC and it's an expectation for accreditation, it's expectation for these programs, they don't have a choice. They can't wait for past 1993. You know what I mean? It has to just be done, and universities have to figure out, or not universities, but institutes, programs have to figure it out, you know what I mean, as a part of the program. And I think that's, you're gonna ruffle feathers, but I mean, we need to ruffle feathers because what's happening now isn't necessarily, like you said, it's not optimal. It's functional, but not optimal. And maybe we need to function at a higher level. And maybe we do need to recreate job descriptions or create a new job. Forget about changing the current one. We'll just call it a new name. That's actually a lot faster.
Yeah, it is.
I think that's great, Linda. That's exactly the kind of thing we were thinking of. And we thought also about our people's job descriptions in the university. And we did, again, we were a smaller program, but we were a UC program in a public university. So for instance, one thing we did was just change workload a little. We didn't add workload, we changed it. So 1 week of the spring quarter, we had all supervisors not going into classrooms, but coming to campus, and we would spend the whole week doing collaborative scoring. And we also didn't hold classes that week. So candidates got to do full-time student teaching with their mentor teachers. And then the rest of the faculty came to campus, and we spent, 2 days together doing score collaboration. We went home for 2 days and scored. And again, we were only scoring maybe 3 full, and some of them were double scored, right? So we were sharing some. And then we came back towards the end of the week and we talked about what we found and what we were seeing and et cetera. But that was a way that we were able to distribute workload differently, and we thought it was a huge benefit.
We can recommend like doing a trial of local scoring with the universities. And yeah, I don't know, guidance on that. And maybe, like you're saying 10% of multiple subjects, special education or whatever certificate area that the university covers. And you go start from there and see what it looks like for them. So then they don't feel overwhelmed with like, oh, I have 500 to score. And you start with 50. You play it out, like I love that having that week to kind of like not take off, but change, shift.
Right.
Mhm.
It's an opportunity to be creative and innovative.
Yes. Mhm.
And I think that's where we are now, because I can see, like, I work for the LAUSD's intern program, and I'm just visualizing what it's going to look like moving forward. Like, yeah, I think that if you put that as part of the job description as an expectation, it's going to happen.
And then just everyone supports it, like both,
Well, especially when
everyone.
especially when they don't
Everyone,
have a
but
choice.
according to these two documents, they support local schooling.
Thank you.
So there is a need for it, but I think like you should like, what does it look like?
Right.
I think as long as we word it in such a way that is considerate of
Yes.
the variety of kinds of programs,
Right.
the financial constraints, the inability to change a job description suddenly, like as long as we are thinking about those things and
Well, and we
considering it.
discussed the
how we-
political climate, like a
Yeah.
lot of universities are losing funding. There is
Mhm.
shortage, people aren't going to teaching as
Mhm.
much,
Yeah.
financially, universities are going to be suffering.
Mhm. And future TPAs may be different. So if we make something too specific based on what we know about them right now. Shayna, you made a recommendation down in slide 16 that had to do with funding for candidates on the TPA.
Mhm.
Comment had to do with, I'm just going to read what you said. This is a very specific idea that I think might be part of something, a somewhat larger desire to make the TPA affordable.
Mhm.
Candidates, I wonder if the recommendation could be to explore a way to make the TPA free. And this may be, and then you list out some ideas. And maybe there is some wording like that we could use here.
Yeah, I think we kind of talked about this in our other group with another part where we had like a loan or a grant option for, right here. Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly.
That's the one.
And I think with having a for-profit test giver right now, that's a difficult ask. I think we could suggest that we don't have a need in the state for a for-profit test giver, for lack of a better term. Maybe we could do this because then it would be up to the state to fund this. But I don't see how Pearson would be in the business of giving away free tests,
Oh, wait, I don't understand, Josh. Where are you? Did I get the wrong?
No, it's because it said loan grant program to fund candidate TPA fees. I was just saying because we were in this group and that's what we were worried about with having that for-profit entity still part of this.
Okay.
How would we convince them to make this free?
Oh, yeah.
I think the cost is in all of the work around the data collection and the scoring and the training of the scorers. That is a different sort of thing than the local scoring piece, but there is a cost there too. Who's going to do who's going to do the et cetera.
Yeah.
But exploring how that can work is I think, and I think that's why there were so many different options that were.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I don't think we have any answers, but
We
it's a great discussion.
we have more answers. But we've had a great discussion. Yeah.
Just taking 2 bullets, you guys, there might be low hanging fruit.
Okay.
you have to work through. The winner rate of reliability and calibration are roughly the same thing.
And both of those are, if we keep the 5.4, it says calibration and training and scoring, blah, blah, blah. I mean, we could. But I'm reading it quickly, so.
Just saying. I don't have a dog in this fight at all.
Okay.
Sometimes editing is relaxing.
Okay, I understand that.
I think we're going back now, Tina.
Oh, we are, okay.
Yeah, it's 25. Oh my goodness. So we're just gonna.
I know
move
it's, I think we just, yeah, I don't
I
know.
think we should.
Yeah,
Oh, but there's feedback there.
there's feedback, but